Hello everyone, this is a review of everything that was going on high stakes in the past 3 months. Avr0ra is back from Triton, he is grinding already, and we can finally talk to him about this experience. Hello to you, Alexei. Hello everyone, yeah, for some time our monthly issue turned into a quarterly, but a lot was going on. We had a big interview with Janter, check this one out. We had to work things out with ads. I went to Triton, so yeah, a lot of stuff. But also a lot of stuff was going on in online cash games, so let's go over the biggest events of the first quarter of 2024. Friends, we decided to give away merchandise from Triton. 5 things are awaiting for their new owner. You can choose either a hat or a t-shirt with a Triton logo. And to do that, just write Triton to our Telegram bot. It's agamepoker_bot. You can see the link down below. You can just type it into your browser and then send a message to our bot. We will choose winners randomly by the end of the May and let you know in the next issue. The third thing I personally want to talk about is Reg Wars at ACR. This whole thing started in February 2023 and ended in February 2024. Why have it stopped at all? Well, many players stopped doing that because of the poor results, guys like Nacho or Victor. ACR also found more interesting things to do, so the only guys left were Linus and Davy or Vasiliev on ACR, Davy Jones, who is a top winner, SeaLlama or SeaLlama, which is how you correctly pronounce it in Argentinian, who beat pretty much everyone. So yeah, those 4 were the only ones left, and it was tough for them to organize games, and people didn't really want to play against SeaLlama, so everything died down, and now, well, they maybe play heads up sometimes, but it's not that entertaining. I'd like to see more of 3 Max Plus action. So we can basically summarize this Reg Wars for the past year. You can see winnings here in some sort of currency. I'm not gonna say it is US dollars, but those who won a lot here, well, let's say they are happy. Nacho played the most in terms of volume, but he also lost the biggest amount, more than $1 million. And his partner, Davy Jones, in my opinion, is the winner of this whole thing. In terms of winnings to hands played ratio, he is the best. His winnings is 5 BBs per 100, EV winnings is 600k, and total winnings more than 800k. And it's interesting, 2 friends, one is the biggest winner, and the other one is the biggest loser. Well, Davy Jones overall showed some great results on ACR, well, not that great on GG Poker. He lost some really big pots, but in terms of binds, he's doing just fine, believe me. He's pretty unlucky on GG Poker, and when you lose big pots on NL40k, and we will see some of these pots later, it affects winnings a lot. The fact that he lost like 40 pots on NL40k and then won like 100 pots on NL5k to NL20k, playing against those same guys or maybe even a tougher opposition, shows that he knows how to play. It's really nice to see SeaLlama here. He was in our top 10 for the past year, and we talked a little bit with him in Discord, and it's really nice to see that he cemented his position in Reg Wars. It's nice to see some new faces, although SeaLlama plays for a long time now, but anyways. And I want to ask you what happened to Victor and Nacho. In terms of numbers, they're doing poorly, but maybe you know more. What's happening to their game, and how does those long lose streaks affect their game overall? First couple of words about SeaLlama. He started playing on GG Poker not so long ago, as you mentioned, last February actually, and he decided to warm up on NL100 heads up against Barak. His nickname on GG Poker is Stone Cat, and they played a huge pot against each other on NL100k. Everyone thought he was playing against a recreational, but no, it is one of the top regs. And his play here with the 7 is actually very sophisticated. Many players asked what the hell is going on with the 7 here. Is it a value bet on the river or is it a bluff? And we can go through it together. In my opinion, it is definitely a value bet, a very thin value bet, of course, but this is his style, this is how he plays. If he thinks that he is ahead of his opponent's range, he can bet really widely for value. And here Barak played a very deceptive line, so he bets on the flop against a check from a 3-better, then he hits a king on the turn and checks back. So his range looks like a lot of 7x combos, 5x combos, some 6x combos. And Stone Cat or SeaLlama with Jack 7 has, against a balanced correct range, has about 75% equity. And maybe if opponent makes some mistakes, even closer to 80%. And that is just about enough to make this hand a value bet. And also his image, I think, also affects his decision. He thought that Barak probably will call wider with his bluff catchers. So yeah, it is definitely a value bet, not a bluff. And this is how SeaLlama lost his bankroll on GG Poker. He never played Barak on NL 100k heads up anymore, but he played some 20k and 40k games. In terms of Nacho, he is more or less active right now. He plays a lot on GG Poker and VPN, and he is now selecting tables more carefully. It is noticeable that he wants to win more, he wants to select softer games, although he does it in his own ways, and sometimes he plays against a really tough competition actually. And maybe some guys who specialize in selecting softer games just laugh at his selection. Well, nonetheless, for his standards, he is now selecting really well, so the results will come. His technical level is still very high, and yes, he lost a million here, but he played against top 5 players in the world, and even if you are top 6 and you're playing against top 5 guys, you will lose, which is exactly what happened. Well, yeah, he is definitely a top 10 player in the world. And the fact that Jacer speaks highly of his game tells us a lot. Well, he doesn't exactly rate his game that highly, but he would like to play against him. Anyways, the start of the year for him wasn't that great. He played in Macau a couple of times, I believe. I even think he's in Macau right now. He was there a couple of times this year and last year as well. He really enjoyed our first trip to Macau when we both won a lot of money, and maybe he thought that there's just free money waiting for him. So he's a frequent guest out there right now. He also played in a very expensive game, 500k with deep stacks, if we convert this to US dollars. But he didn't really like it because comparing to 100-200, again converting into US dollars that we played together, on 500k these same recreational players were playing much more conservatively and weren't just giving money away. Anyways, he is still a winning player. He doesn't play online as much, but he was trading cryptocurrency a lot. It is back again, make cryptocurrency great again, although it maybe ended already, and I don't know. But he definitely knows what to do. He is much better in this than I am. He knows when to short, when to long, and all this stuff. Well, at least in his opinion, he knows. And he's trying to make money this way. About this hand with SeaLlama, this is heads up after all, and in heads up it doesn't really look that weird. Second pair with heads up ranges, it looks like an okay bet. But what's really interesting here, that I heard it from some of my friends, that Barak is not leaving heads up tables anymore on GG Poker. So what's that about? Is he now trying to play heads up? Well, he always did from time to time. For example, Giya Yakabishvili played a lot heads up against Barak. He also played against my friend Sergei Nikiforov last year. So yeah, he always played heads up, and now he is just in a very good shape. He had a really good match against Matthew Bergert in February. So yeah, he always played heads up. It's not like he started from nowhere. It's just that he feels the game much better, and now he is in great shape. And he is a very analytical player after all. He knows really well when his opponents make range mistakes. For example, if he called King 10 and he sees that his opponent is value betting too thin, he knows that his opponent lost some EV against his strategy and it's more comfortable for him to play, and he plays more. So yeah, I think it's more about the fact that the guys who challenged him played poorly against him. So Barak sees EV, Barak takes EV. Well, for Barak, EV is pretty much everywhere. I also want to notice that he played really well in Reg Wars. He is in second place in terms of volume and won some money, which is by itself a very good result. I mean, try playing against top 5 or top 10 players in the world and end up winning anything. Yeah, and Barak is a type of player you can fight on pretty much every stake, where everyone has no idea how he wins, and yet he keeps on winning. And we've been talking about him for how long, like a year and a half now, and he is still at the very top of the game. So yeah, I don't think it is a coincidence, and it's time for us to accept that he is one of the best players. Well, I never was one of those guys who has no idea why he wins. To me, it's crystal clear why he wins. I mean, try finding a single hand he played poorly. Yeah, we analyze a lot of hands and I don't remember him playing poorly, actually. Well, I was exaggerating. Everyone has bad hands to his name, bad adjustments, suboptimal plays. I remember a hand where he played too greedy against Linus, which allowed him to make a very sin fold. Yeah, I remember this one. So yeah, he makes mistakes, but those mistakes are not like huge. He doesn't really go out of line. He usually never has the huge winnings or huge losses. His strategy, his game style is more solid. So yeah, with him, I think it's clear why he wins. I also want to add that in February, Linus played a lot of PLO. And he also played a match against a PLO professional, Senita 55. I'm not a PLO specialist, but he won some money in the end. They played a lot of hands, like 20k or even 25. It's a huge volume for a heads-up match, and well, of course, it's Omaha, so it is a little more random, but it's not as random as you would think. And Linus won convincingly with a win rate of 5 VB per 100. As you see on the screenshot, on his good days he had stacks of 5 or 600 BBs. So yeah, Linus played a lot of PLO in February. His last attempt at PLO ended up badly. He lost a lot of money specifically to Tony G in his coin poker in a very expensive game. But Linus definitely knows how to play PLO. I mean, try winning a match against a PLO professional. Also want to add that if we go over top winnings in February amongst all the players, we see that Linus is at the top of the list. Playing only 2,000 hands, he managed to claim the first place. In the end of the month, when he took a break from his heads-up matches, he played a very expensive game NL100 with deep stacks against Colorful and won the biggest pot of the month. So yeah, it took like 2 or 3 pots for him to claim the #1 spot. Well, he actually played Mr. Colorful dirty. Everything was amazing for the recreational player on the flop, but Linus managed to hit his Gene card on the turn. And he also played his hand really tricky. He put a block bet inducing a raise, a value raise from his opponent, and then he played really greedy, he re-raised, and he put all of his money in on the river. And so he ended up winning a huge pot of 500 or actually even 600 blinds. And it was enough for him to end up in the first place. We should probably think here if Linus has any bluffs in his shoving range. I think not. Or maybe he can shove some 8s to fold out chops, although I don't think so, because Colorful has all the 8 9s in his range, in full weight. So yeah, in Colorful shoes, I think you should look for a fold. Although why would you fold when you are a dollar millionaire and you just play for fun? You are not playing for fun to then find some thin folds on the river against Linus. So yeah, I don't blame him at all. And we can't blame Linus for playing this one greedily. Yeah, in this regard I have a question. At least once in a couple months I see Minus playing high stakes Omaha, and I wonder how good is he in it. I mean, playing against recreationals is one thing, but playing against a regular, a heads-up match is completely different. So is he capable of playing everything, including triple draw with 10 exchanges? Well, unfortunately, we will never know. I don't know this, and I think nobody does. But from what I've heard, it is easier to learn how to play heads-up pillow. We have really wide ranges, and the game overall is more logical. So yeah, from what I've heard from a specialist in a PLO, it is easier to learn how to play the game in heads-up. I mean, by playing heads-up matches, you can grow really quickly. I mean, your poker-related skills from heads-up no limit are really of big help here. And the games are closer to each other with wide ranges. So becoming a top player in a 6-max PLO is harder than in a heads-up PLO, if you're coming from no-limit background. But it's an interesting question whether Linus is really good at PLO or not. Maybe some of our viewers know more and can tell us in the comment section. But he at least knows what to do. I mean, try playing 25k hands against a specialist and end up winning. I'm sure not many people are up to the task. And the chances that this is a coincidence are very slim. So he's at least on par. Okay, back to the top 10 of February in terms of winnings. As we said before, Linus was lucky enough to get in a very expensive game and win a huge pot against a recreational player. And oh, I almost forgot, there was a very interesting pot of 1,600 big blinds on NL5K. There was a lot of talk around this hand. Young British pro Owen Messere played a 1,600 big blinds pot against a guy with a VPAP of 90. And it's a real stat, I mean, he played pretty much everything. He's a recreational from UAE. And he brought a lot of action to NL5K. And it wasn't really NL5K because there were a lot of straddles and restraddles, not in this hand, however, but all in all, I'd say it's more like NL10K or even 20K. So it's not completely fair to say that it was NL5K. Anyways, a very interesting pot. Many people, I assume, have already seen it, but let's go over. Not every day you see a pot of 1,600 blinds. The question is whether it's cooler or not. Well, probably yes. I think Owen has to value bet against a VIP player with 100 VPIP almost. He won't have a lot of nuts, so yeah, nice value bet, and then against the shove he only has to call $3 to win 80k. So you think he has enough pot odds, right? Yep. Okay, back to February top 10. Ignacio, as we said before, started selecting tables a lot more, stopped playing Reg Wars. We can say that he played really well this month because all of his winnings came from this same game with Linus on NL40k. He was break-even for almost a whole month. And it is represented in his win rate as well. But anyways, we can conclude that Ignacio, I don't know what his name actually is, Ignacio Nacho Moron or just Ignacio Moron. Anyways, he ended February with a nice result, with a profit of 250k. I think Nacho is short for Ignacio. Oh no, he definitely has a middle name. On Triton, they displayed his whole name, so I saw it there. And, damn it, Nacho is his nickname. It has nothing to do with his middle name, sorry. Nacho is not his name, but he has a middle name. It's Julio or something like that, I don't remember actually, but Nacho is definitely his nickname, not the real name. But February was a nice month for him. Matthew was also very successful in February. He played a lot of heads-up, he was playing simultaneously against Barak and Owen, and even I played against him a little bit with some straddles. So yeah, Matthew was in very good shape in February and he played really well. And he definitely deserved to be in top 3, maybe even more so than Linus and Ignacio. A boy named Sue is a guy, I believe, from America, although he plays with a Mexican flag, because he is a part of a group of those who fight cheaters. So I definitely know him, and I believe his nickname before was Queenie in the VPN network. Well, maybe someone remembers him, he's like that half old school player. And unfortunately I don't remember his nickname on Stars. But yeah, he started playing more on GG Poker and he was very successful. He won pretty much everything on NL5K and NL10K. And as far as I know, he had a long break, at least from playing on public sites, or maybe playing on the sites that I play. But it would be interesting to watch his comeback. Next we have Davy Jones, who played with an amazing win rate of 13 BBs per 100 on VPN. As far as I know, he was lucky at the end of Reg Wars. He also played some heads-up matches, he played against recreational players as well. So yeah, and we pretty much went over everything we wanted to about him when we were talking about the winner of Reg Wars. Next we have Robert Flink, who only played 350 hands on NL 100k heads up. He won 1.5 binds there, and that's all we can say. And by the way, he's the guy who only plays heads up, but both No Limit and Omaha. I once played against him 3 max. I believe I posted some of those hands to my Telegram channel. And there was a moment, he is actually a friend of Koyan Mokra, who frequently appears on our show. And they often play a 5-card PLO. But Kayan at that time was playing Reg Wars. I also was playing Reg Wars with him. So Robert sat at our table and started talking Kayan into playing a 5-card PLO with him, while also playing with us. So he played for about an hour and it was really interesting. He brought a lot of action. Like a very old school heads-up player playing 3 max. Always interesting. It was really fun to watch this very loose game, VPIP of 50, folding to 3-bet like 20. A little masterclass from him. But this style of play is not worth it, right? Yeah, of course not. And it was just an L20k. The guy plays an L100k heads up against everyone in both Omaha and NL, so an L20k is probably too cheap for him. Huang Wayne is a professional from China and I know him personally. I met him in Macau. I haven't watched him closely in February, but apparently he played a lot. He was always around, young professional who mostly plays offline, but who is also very successful online. Probably one of the best or the best player among young Chinese professionals. Kevin Texier Paquet was also successful in a game with Colorful. He won a couple of binds over 4k hands and ended up at 8th place. Number 9 is SeaLlama. He was a hero of our year-end issue, and he was also very successful at Reg Wars. He started late, only managed to play 15k hands before the whole thing went down, but he was one of the reasons for that. He plays really well. He lost this big pot on GG Poker, but he came back and ended up in top 10. Alex Garcia is one of the short stack specialists, playing 14 BBs and lower. One of Misha Inner nemesis, if you remember early streams. He was complaining about him and the other guy, Alex Dancer. They both play short stacked and he was angry about them being too needy and always coming up with a nice hand. And this time it seems Alex was hitting his hands well and ended up in top 10. By the way, out of all these short stack players, Alex is probably one of the most aggressive ones, and he also plays the highest stakes. And I even heard that he sponsors all the other short stack players. So he's the main short stacker, let's say. Yeah, number 1 enemy of Misha Inner. Well, no, not really. He's the leader of Misha Inner's enemies, let's say. So yeah, short stackers commander-in-chief ended up at position number 10. So that's February for you. Guys, if you like our content and you want to support it and you want us to bring more, we've created a website for you, agame.partners, where you can see all of our partner projects. We have education, exchanges, backing, software. In few words, a lot of stuff a professional player cannot do without. So, welcome. And with this we go to the March. March was the month of Daniil Vasiliev. He had a great month. First of all, he played over 30,000 hands, which is a lot. If you don't believe, try playing that much in 1 month. And his pure EV is a little more than 500,000. It's an amazing result. He played quite high in terms of stakes. He also played heads up a lot. Here is his hand against Taisto, pretty much a cooler, but it definitely was played in Daniil's trademark style. This urgent stacking off, when you play against Daniil, you have to be aware that pretty much at any point all the chips may go into the pot. And in this case, it wasn't Taisto's fault. Of course, most of his winnings came from this same game against Colorful. Those games started in the end of February and helped Linus to claim the first spot in February's list. And they went on in March as well, and Daniil took it by the storm. When the game was on with Colorful, he was pretty much always present at the table. Here's another tough cooler against young Austrian player, Petr Knopp. We were talking about him a lot on our show. He is a student of Tobias Deutschweiler, a lot of players actually, Barak as well, he coached him at some point. A very good player, he probably sold his shares for these games. And believe me, Daniil is not selling anything. He plays for his own money, which is not that great actually, because you can easily lose like $1 million here. Here Daniil defended 5-3 suited, and on the turn Petr was pretty much doomed. Even deep stacked, like 150 plus, he had no way out of this. And as I said before, when you play Daniil, all the chips will go in at some point, and people always pay him off. He always gets those calls. And of course, you can't fold pocket kings here. So when Petr faced 2x pot shove on the river, I think he called happily. Okay, here Daniil lost a big pot to Herman Rodriguez. His nickname is Tutti88. It is the guy who was beaten by Stefan in a heads-up match. Old school player from Spain, and he also sold shares for these games, as far as I know. Also an interesting hand, in my opinion, non-conventional hand. Yeah, very interesting one. I was captivated when I went over it on 2+2. Well, this hand also showcases Daniil's playing style. Many players would choose between folding and calling on the turn. Well, let's start from the beginning. We open 4-bet ace-king, then we put a c-bet on the flop. And on the turn, our ace doesn't block any possible backdoors from the flop. So it's not a heart, not a diamond, and not a club. And it is probably the best ace-king combo if we want to keep on fighting for this spot. If we want to fight back, we don't want to block his backdoors. Ace-queen, ace-jack suited. So we should probably do something about it. Some people would barrel it, some people would check call with an idea of bluff catching. But Daniil had his own vision of the spot, and he decided to turn it into a bluff. He check-raised pretty small, and then he shoved river with an SPR of like 0.5. So it's a very thin bluff aimed specifically on hands like pocket tens, although Tutti didn't fold it. I don't want to say that this is purely exploitative play, maybe it is GTO justified, but the problem is that he should fold at least sometimes his pocket tens. I mean pocket tens, pocket nines, this type of holdings. And it's unclear whether he makes villain fold those hands or not. It wasn't an easy call for Tutti. He spent a lot of time thinking, and the fact that we have a 4 straight on the board doesn't really matter at all. Most players in the 4-bet spot do not have a lot of 5x combos, so aces and kings are nuts here, and Daniil probably represents aces. Mostly aces, maybe a little bit of 5x combos and some kings as well. So Herman has to guess whether his opponent has enough bluffs or not, and in this case Daniil clearly has. And again, well, I can't say it's a beautiful hand or anything like it, because it's a clear cooler, second nut versus first nuts, a masterclass from Linus, although of course Daniil can't fold here. He was happy to play for stacks, but unfortunately he lost. And it also shows that huge pots were swinging by from one player to another. A lot of hands like this, and it was really easy to go from 0 to million and from 0 to minus a million in just one session. In this hand, we should probably know that this is yet another cooler. I just want to show that Daniil won some money from pretty much everyone, including a heads-up match against Barak. He finally managed to win some from him, get some of his losses back. It's funny that he used to beat everyone at NL20k and then climb to NL40 and lose everything to Barak and Linus. And finally he won a couple of stacks in a heads-up match against Barak and some money in 4max against regulars as well. Well, at least this 300 BB pot. And yeah, this one is also a cooler for Barak. He check raised flop, then bet turn and check called river with a top pair. Yeah, it's tough to blame him for this call. I mean, there are some bluffs in Daniil's range, some hard combos, hands like 10-8. Some 9x combos he decides to turn into bluff. Ace-4 is also an interesting bluffing combo we would probably get to the river with. So yeah, against such an aggressive player as Daniil is just a cooler for Barak. But we should be happy for Daniil. He finally started winning big pots against Barak, which is a tough job for anyone. I should also mention that March was a really bad month for Davy Jones. He lost a lot of money on GG Poker and fell even further behind from real name. Daniil ended up winning about $500,000 in March, and Davy Jones ended up losing about $500,000. He lost a lot in those games we were talking about. He also lost money in other places, let's say. Here's the big hand he loses against Taisto. So yeah, a very unfortunate month for him. Tons of money that he lost. So yeah, the whole top 10 basically of March is guys who played against Colorful. Only Daniil played like huge volume, others just played successfully against Colorful. And yeah, Linus again, top 2 here, very consistent, very talented and very successful player. He always shows up in our reviews. He always starts games and people are happy to play against him, both heads up and 6max tables, and he just demolishes everyone. And it's been a long time since he was proclaimed as the best player in the world, and he had his downfalls, but it looks like he's on his second win now. And he's destroying everyone again. I think we should also talk about Daniil's volume in March, because he played really a lot of hands, and it seems like in terms of swings, it seems that his experiences in a month same as other regulars in a year. Well, not in a year, of course, but yeah, in those games he gave it all. He was always present, he was always at the tables. And what's interesting, there was a VIP player in April also who played 24-hour sessions. And Daniil played like 8 hours with him, then went to sleep, woke up and continued playing. So he just basically slept and played poker and that's it. Next we have Avr0ra, player from Finland, whose table selection is top-notch and who also did really well in games with Colorful. Alan Watts is top cat, also a very famous player from PokerStars times. Finally everything went good for him, because he wasn't very successful at GG Poker. His nickname there is Cole Swannock. But he did really well on VPN at NL20k games. Markus Ladev is one of the best, or probably the best player in Estonia. He's in great shape, plays both cash and tournaments. And if you check the biggest winners of the year, he's probably #1. He doesn't play a lot, but he plays very efficiently. So when he is in the game, he beats everyone. Tobias frequently appears on our show. He had a bad ending of 2023, but he is coming back in 2024. He was also a part of Colorful games. He played 8,000 hands with 20 BB per 100 win rate, so he also played lower stakes. And I'm really glad to see him here. He is a very good technical player, but he often plays in a bad shape. I mean, the way he runs affects his level of play significantly, in my opinion. So if he keeps running hot, I believe he will soon win back everything that he lost in the last year. JSM Gale, I believe, played heads up only. He outplayed some poor guy in a heads up match. and showed an unbelievable win rate of 35 BBs per 100. LOL Void Diamonds is Ohe Cindy. It's an American player, maybe someone remembers him from old videos from Invoker. He talked to Invoker and Red Baron, and Joe Ingram interviewed him. He played on Ignition for quite some time, a network for American players only, and now he is destroying everyone on a VPN. And he also started playing on GG Poker. Glory B is his nickname on GG Poker, and he actually started quite poorly. He lost a lot of money, but on VPN he rocks. Daryl Go is Mr. 464, a very famous coach. He's famous also for his playing style. He never plays a lot, and in March he only played 6k hands, but very successfully. It was enough to get to top 9. And Taisto Janter is probably top 2 or top 3 in all-time winnings on GG Poker. He also played effectively in colorful games, and as we saw earlier, he damaged Davy Jones a little bit. Guys, if you like our content and you want to support it and you want us to bring more, we've created a website for you, agame.partners, where you can see all of our partner projects. We have education, exchanges, backing, software. In few words, a lot of stuff a professional player cannot do without. So, welcome. And finally, April, we are trying to catch up here. We want to do 3 months in one issue, and I hope you are not tired yet. Well, to me, the biggest thing in April was this crazy game with Mr. Wei Yan. On this screenshot you can see 1700 hands, and with average amount of 80 hands per 100 for this table, we have about 20 hours of play. And there were a couple of sessions like that. So Wei Yan played several 20 to 25 hour sessions pretty much non-stop. And I had a sense of this, older person from China who likes to play these really long sessions. You can see those guys a lot in Macau as well. They can play 24 hours easily, and now this happened online basically. And the dynamics of the game was really interesting. He is a very advanced amateur, he plays cautiously, he really tries, and tables were forming slowly around him. So there were interesting situations, like Daniil said, he plays 16 hours straight, and then he goes to sleep, he wakes up, there's an empty seat, because people didn't really want to play against Wei Yan, and he sits down and keeps on playing. So we had this really weird cycle of regulars. And because of the empty seats, there were times where other recreationals joined the game, so there were moments where 2 recreationals played at this table simultaneously. Like on this screenshot you see Espolon, he is a recreational player, he is a very advanced amateur, but he is not a professional definitely. So we had 2 recreationals playing simultaneously on an L40 with deep stacks. A very rare occasion indeed. And of course, situations like that is a perfect opportunity to generate a lot of EV for top-notch players like Linus and Taisto. Huge amounts of pure EV, deep stacks, which means, Rake is still relevant, but it's lower anyways on NL40K. So you can print tons of pure EV, but of course at the same time, the variance is also huge. You can easily lose a couple of millions in a game like that. Well, maybe not couple millions, but 1 million easy. And let's go over some interesting hands from these games. I went over them in my Telegram channel already, but I think it would be nice to do it again using my voice. It would be nice for history as well. First of all, I want to note that Wei Yan really likes this line, bet check call. And even here with pocket queens and an ace on the board, he was not afraid to bet 2 times for thin value and then check call against a shove. In reality, it's not as bad as it looks. It really may look atrocious, but it's not. Well, basically we achieve all of our goals, we make him pay with all of his draws, which Linus would have a lot in this case, with deep stacks, he will call with a lot of connectors, and we make all of those pay, and then we allow them to bluff. The problem is that, let's take a look at another example. Here Wei Yan also 4-bets, he also bets twice and then check calls, but the problem is that when our opponent has a hand that is stronger than ours, then we allow him to extract maximum value. And here in the same spot, basically with the same line, in the same branch of the game tree, Linus ended up winning with a nice value bet, getting max value. We should add that Daniil was also very active here. Last month he played over 30k hands, this month maybe even more, but the results were not as good. Couple of coolers, and this month we won't see him among the top winners. But he still ended up close to break even, so I think it's fine. Here, for example, we see a big cooler against Ignacio Nacho Moron. Daniil check-raised the flop with a pair and a gut shot, and got there on the turn. Next he just check-called down with his lower straight and ended up losing to the nut straight. And of course not a great spot for Daniil on the river, a terrible spot I would say. A lot of flushes in Ignacio's range, a lot of nut straights, and all of those he value shoves, and not a lot of possible bluffing combos. You have to count combos, but Daniil knows better. It depends a lot on how Ignacio plays his nut combos, his spade flush draws. It's a very advanced hand actually, and you can't estimate what to do on the fly. I, for example, can't tell from the get-go if it's a good bluff catch or not. The thing is that stacks are very deep, and if Ignacio bluffs, he probably should fold out straights. And he didn't make him fold straight, so bluffing here is no good, so yeah. It would be interesting to hear from Daniil how easy it was for him to call here. Or how hard it was to call on the river. I mean, on the turn he probably should call, although when your opponent bets a pot on the turn, he basically represents nut straight or better. Or maybe some straight plus flush draw combos as well. Or straight plus something else. Like it often happens in Omaha. You have a straight plus a free roll. Also I want to point out that Gia played a lot of Reg Wars in April. And this table here is basically your dream table if you want to play Reg Wars. I mean, Gia, he's a very good, very talented, very advanced poker player, but he also a very rich businessman. So he can afford to play against two best players in the world. So now you see his Reg Wars on NL40k against number 1 and number 2 in the world. Well, in my opinion, of course. I mean, even if they are not top 1 and top 2, they both are at least top 3-4. But most likely 1 and 2. And Gia gives them some action, gives them a run for their money. Check it out, what shape are they in. There also was a very nice hand from him against Barak in a heads-up match. Yet another round of their duel, and Barak ended up winning a huge pot. But not exactly huge, but a rather big one. The pot was around 200 blinds. In heads-up match, pots like this occur quite frequently, and this is also Santa heads-up, so the effective stacks are even smaller. And again, people were wondering what the hell happened here with Ace-5, but if we think about it, it might not even be a mistake. It's a decent forward bluff pre-flop, and then on the flop, when we have a backdoor, a flush draw, a gut shot, and an overcard, most likely we have to play for stacks. Calling on turn is not pleasant, of course, but in this case, Barak had a pair plus flush draw. But he could definitely have a naked flush draw, which we beat, and we also have a gut shot against value hands. So in actuality, this hand is very close to GTO, or maybe is GTO. So yeah, he ended up losing a huge pot, but I think that his play was reasonable. The only alternative I see is to stack off on the flop. I mean, no, he can stack off on the flop, he can call twice, which he did, basically, or he can call once and then fold on the turn. These are 3 available options for him. And yes, I realize that this hand looks wild, but the only real alternative he had is to play for stacks on the flop. And I assume that if he would have played for stacks on the flop, no one would have said a word about it. He was a little ahead, I think, on the flop, or at least 50-50. But he delayed to the turn, and maybe he had an idea of probably bluffing on some turn runouts, but yeah, it's tough to say. Or maybe there are runouts where Gia can actually win against a stronger hand, Like if Barak rates hands like ace-3, and then a king comes on the turn, and Barak check calls, or we play check-check, and we have an opportunity to bluff on the river, and so on. So yeah, when we delay stacking off, there are some options where we can actually make our opponent fold a hand that is stronger. Nonetheless, he decided to stack off on the turn. He beats all of the monster draws in his opponent's range. His overcard is alive pretty much always, I think, against Barak's value range, or almost always. So yeah, it looks okay, but it ended up terribly for us, because we ended up stacking off against a pair plus flush draw, and we have like 15%, so yeah, not what Gia was hoping for. Let's get back to our list, and again, everything here is about those crazy games against Wei Yan. Those exhausting marathons. We can actually see who participated in those marathons by the number of hands played. And probably only Manuel, oh no, he played lower stakes. Yeah, probably only Taisto ended up winning in those marathons. Everyone else at some point lost some money. Well, because the recreational player was really advanced, he didn't lose a lot of money for the games that he played. And for the rest of the field, when you play those exhausting marathons, it's tough to say how much EV you can actually generate. I mean, there is a lot of EV anyways, but when you play 24-hour marathons with deep stacks, where every mistake costs like a lot of money, and everything adds up, so yeah. I think the moment Wei Yan stopped playing, everyone had a sigh of relief. Yeah, it's not easy to get away alive from those games. Markus Ladev, we have talked about him before. He doesn't play a lot, but when he does, he crushes. He had some amazing results in the end of 2023 and in 2024. He already played like 20k hands in this period with a win rate of like 20 BBs per 100. It's just phenomenal, and he also plays MTTs and destroys everyone offline. In the second place, we have the only guy who ended up winning in those marathon games with Wei Yan. He is also from Estonia, Taisto Janter. Barak, with the help of those big pots against Gia, managed to claim number 3 spot. He had bad results in those Wei Yan games, and we can tell from his win rate. His win rate was negative, but he ended up winning some money. This is because of those NL100k games against Gia. And he was also lucky there. If it wasn't for the 6 on the turn, 250k would have gone to Gia, and he wouldn't have made it to this list. Oh Hi Mark is an American player. I don't know him, but he is pretty famous in American community. He's won a lot of buy-ins, maybe he had a huge upswing on like NL5k. Maybe he found some decent regs, or maybe he outplayed someone heads up, because on VPN there are a lot of Reg Wars going on, and I think he won a lot of it in those Reg Wars. Number 5, one of the real Montenegrins. It's really tough to pronounce his name. I believe it's Kala Drujevic. Old school player with a great table selection, plays a lot of expensive games. But it's not his only success, because in April he also won Super Millions series, making pure profit of more than $1 million. Maybe even 2 million, so yeah, he was successful both in MTTs and in cash games. Or maybe he tried cash after winning the tournament, but anyways he made it to the top 10. SeaLlama made a comeback after a very bad previous month. Taking his win rate into account, it seems that he again played NL100 heads up, but this time successfully. Next we have a number of players from VPN. As I said, there were some nice games against the recreational on NL20k and NL10k. Vesna Pisarovic is Jason Gale. He had some success, winning a couple of buy-ins over 3k hands, or couple dozen buy-ins considering his win rate, or close to it. No Chicken Song. To be honest, I have no idea who that is, but he won over 100k bucks, and I think he is happy about it. Well, actually, I should remember him because I have played against him. I believe that he is also American, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I don't know who he is. But most likely he also won in those NL20k and NL10k games. Yet another successful month for Cindy. He plays very aggressively and destroys everyone on VPN, but just like Davy Jones, he is not very successful on GG Poker. And finally, Manuel Saavedra, a frequent hero on our show. I also want to advertise one more time his interview on Gypsy Team. BRD will leave a link to this interview. It is quite interesting. This month he didn't play a lot, but he is famous for playing different stakes from NL1K to NL40K. He is the king of stake mixing.